Think back to the British High Street before it was all coffee chains and vape shops. Picture the glow of a red neon sign on a rainy A-road, the sound of a metal tray sliding across a plastic counter, and that very specific, slightly chaotic joy of a kids-eat-free Sunday. We all have those memories etched into our brains, the places that weren't just restaurants, but the backdrops to our birthdays, our post-exam celebrations, and those endless car journeys to the coast. From the legendary Bender in a Bun to the glory days of the Roadside buffet, we're diving into the 12 iconic chains that define British culture. Some are still standing, some are long gone, but every single one of them is a piece of home. Ready for a proper trip down memory lane? Let's get stuck in. Let's start with a true heavyweight of the British High Street, Wimpy. Founded in 1954 at the iconic Lions Corner House in Coventry Street, London, Wimpy wasn't just a burger joint, it was an institution of manners. Unlike the American giants that followed, Wimpy insisted on silver service. You didn't stand in a queue. You were shown to a table by a host, given a laminated menu, and served on real crockery with stainless steel cutlery. It was the height of mid-century sophistication for a British family. Do you remember the Bender in a Bun? That curiously curled, notched frankfurter that defied the laws of physics, served with a side of perfectly golden chips. And we can't forget the Brown Derby, a warm, glazed donut topped with a mountain of vanilla soft serve and a dusting of chocolate fudge pieces. At its peak in the 1970s, there were over 500 Wimpys across the United Kingdom. While the arrival of McDonald's in 1974 started a slow decline, the nostalgia for a Wimpy Saturday remains unmatched. It represents a time when fast food didn't mean rushing. It meant sitting down, taking your coat off, and being treated with a bit of decorum. For many of us, it was the very first place we felt like a grown-up at the dinner table. If you ever spent a summer holiday staring out of a car window on the Aeon, you'll know the sudden rush of joy at seeing that jumping white chef on a red background. Little Chef was founded in 1958 in Reading, inspired by the American diners of the era. It started with just 11 seats, but it grew into a roadside empire that defined the British motoring experience for 60 years. The early starter and the legendary Olympic breakfast were the fuel of the nation. There was something incredibly comforting about the smell of frying bacon and the sight of those tiny individual cereal boxes while the rain lashed against the window. It was a sanctuary from the motorway madness. At its peak, there were 239 branches scattered across the UK. Do you remember the lollipops at the till? Or the sheer excitement of getting a Little Chef activity pack to keep you quiet for the next 50 miles? Sadly, as motorway service stations became massive shopping malls, the humble Little Chef began to fade. Despite a high-profile rescue attempt by celebrity chef Heston Blumenthal in 2009, which introduced things like strawberry gazpacho to the menu, the brand couldn't survive the changing times. The final branches closed their doors in 2018, marking the end of an era for the British road trip. If Little Chef was for the parents, Happy Eater was definitely for the kids. Founded in 1973 in Surrey, it was the more playful rival on the UK's A-roads. Its mascot, a yellow circular face with a red tongue, was a signal to every child in the back seat that fun was imminent. Happy Eater was famous for its outdoor play areas. Do you remember those brutalist metal climbing frames and slides? They'd be blistering hot in the summer and freezing in the winter, but we didn't care. Inside, the menus were filled with cartoons and puzzles, and the Happy Eater badge was a badge of honor. They even had a signature dessert, the ice cream boat, which was exactly what it sounded like and felt like the height of luxury. The brand was so iconic that even Prime Minister John Major was famously a fan, often stopping for a burger and chips during his travels. However, the business world is a cruel place, and in 1995, the brand was swallowed up by its rival, Little Chef. Most of the sites were rebranded, and the smiling yellow face vanished from our roadsides. For those of us who grew up in the 80s, the loss of Happy Eater felt like the end of the fun part of the British road trip. Long before we had artisan bistros or Michelin-starred pubs, we had the Berni Inn. Founded by brothers Frank and Aldo Berni in Bristol in 1955, it was the restaurant that taught post-war Britain how to eat out. Inspired by the steakhouses they saw in America, The Berni brothers created a standardized, high-quality experience that felt incredibly glamorous. The decor was all about red velvet, Tudor-style wood paneling, and dim lighting. If it was your anniversary or a big birthday, you went to the Berni. The menu was a masterpiece of 1970s consistency. A prawn cocktail served in a stemmed glass with a slice of lemon, followed by a fillet steak with golden chips and garden peas, and finished with a sultana sponge or an Irish coffee with that perfect layer of thick cream on top. At its peak, there were over 140 Berni Inns across the country, often located in beautiful old coaching inns. It was the first place that made steak and chips a national aspiration. While the brand was sold to Whitbread in 1995 and eventually phased out, the Berni Inn remains the gold standard for British nostalgia. It represents a time when dining out was a rare, cherished event that required your Sunday best. Before the world became obsessed with thin and crispy Neapolitan pizzas, Britain had a deep, passionate love affair with the deep pan. The Deep Pan Pizza Co. was the king of this movement. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, their bright neon signs were a fixture of every major retail park and high street. The concept was simple: pizza that felt like a proper meal. The crust was thick, buttery, and almost fried in the pan, creating a crunch that you just don't get with modern pizzas. But the real draw was the all-you-can-eat buffet. For a few pounds, you could challenge your friends to see who could eat the most slices of ham and pineapple or spicy beef. It was the site of 1,000 teenage birthday parties and awkward first dates. They were also pioneers of the stuffed crust, a revelation that changed our lives forever. Why leave the crust when it could be filled with molten garlic cheese? As tastes shifted towards healthier Mediterranean styles in the early 2000s, the brand struggled and was eventually rebranded or closed down. But for anyone who remembers the feeling of that heavy cast-iron pan being placed on the table, the Deep Pan Pizza Co. will always be the heaviest icon of our childhood. Based on the surreal stop-motion cartoon about a clown who ends up on Merry Twit Island, Charlie Chalks was the ultimate fun factory attached to Brewers Fayre pubs. It was a revolution in parenting, a place where mum and dad could have a quiet pint and a steak pie while the kids absolutely lost their minds in a massive multi-story playframe. We're talking about the vertical drop, the snake slide, and the ball pit, which probably contained a treasure trove of lost shoes and arcade tokens. Charlie Chalk himself would often make an appearance, leading a parade of sugar-high children through the restaurant. The food was classic kids' menu fare: turkey dinosaurs, smiley faces, and those tubs of ice cream with the wooden spoons that tasted slightly like the forest. In the mid-1980s, a bit of Deep South magic landed in the UK. Old Orleans was a chain that tried to transport us from a rainy Tuesday in Coventry to the jazz-filled streets of the French Quarter. The first one opened in Cambridge in 1985, and it was a sensory explosion. The decor was shabby chic before the term existed. Neon signs, ceiling fans, wrought iron railings, and memorabilia plastered all over the walls. It was the place where many of us had our first taste of Cajun spices or jambalaya. Their barbecue ribs were legendary, messy, sweet, and served with a side of coleslaw that felt incredibly American. While most of the sites were eventually sold or rebranded into other grill concepts, the memory of that brassy jazz music and the smell of hickory smoke still lingers. It was a bold, loud, and unashamedly fun chapter in British dining history that brought a splash of colour to our high streets. You can't talk about British food without mentioning the world's most famous fish and chip shop. Harry Ramsden started his empire in a wooden hut in Guiseley, West Yorkshire, back in 1928. But this wasn't just your local chippy. Harry had a vision of fish and chips as a luxury experience. By 1931, he had opened a palace featuring oak paneling and dazzling crystal chandeliers. It was the first place that made the national dish feel truly grand. In 1952, they even set a world record for serving the most portions of fish and chips in a single day, over 10,000 portions in just one day, to celebrate their silver jubilee. For decades, a trip to Harry Ramsden's was a ritual. Whether it was the massive flagship in Blackpool or the branches in motorway services, it represented a standard of quality that was hard to beat. The secret was the beef-dripping batter crispy, golden, and unmistakable. While the brand has scaled back from its glory days, the memory of sitting under those chandeliers with a side of mushy peas and a pot of tea remains a core memory for millions. It taught us that our national dish deserved a bit of theatre and a lot of respect. Only in Britain could we build a massive restaurant chain based entirely on a single vegetable. Spudulike was born in Edinburgh in 1974, and by the 1980s, it was the undisputed king of the shopping centre food court. It was the healthy alternative before we really knew what healthy meant. The concept was simple: a massive, perfectly fluffy jacket potato with a mind-boggling array of toppings. From the classic cheese and beans to the slightly more exotic tuna mayo or chili con carne, it was the ultimate comfort food. It was the place you'd go with your mum after a long morning of shoe shopping. There was something deeply satisfying about watching the staff split that piping hot potato and load it with enough butter to sink a ship. Despite its massive popularity, the chain hit hard times and went into administration in 2019, causing a national outcry of nostalgia. Luckily, celebrity chef James Martin stepped in to save the brand, proving that the British public's love for a humble spud is never-ending. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the simplest things are the most enduring. A Spudulike potato wasn't just a meal, it was a warm hug in a cardboard box during a cold British winter. In the UK, Sunday isn't just a day, it's a roast dinner, and Toby Carvery is the undisputed high priest of that tradition. Since the mid-80s, Toby has been the home of the roast, providing a sanctuary for those of us who want the full family dinner experience without the 4 hours of washing up. The ritual is sacred. You grab your oversized plate, join the queue, and watch as the chef carves thick, glistening slices of British beef, turkey, or honey-glazed gammon. But let's be honest, the real stars of the show are the Yorkshire puddings. They're usually the size of a toddler's head and act as a vessel for a literal lake of gravy. Toby Carvery represents the ultimate value-for-money feast. It's the place where you see families celebrating 3 generations of birthdays at a single long table. It's a place of comfort, tradition, and that inevitable food coma that follows. For many, a trip to the Toby is the defining scent of a British weekend, a mix of roasting meat and the steam of 1,000 boiled vegetables. Britain has changed a lot since those days of Wimpy and Little Chef. Many of these brands have vanished, leaving just a gap on the A road and a memory in our minds. But as long as we remember that taste of a brown derby or the excitement of seeing a red roof in the distance, a part of our childhood stays alive. Cheers for joining me on this trip down memory lane. If you've got a special memory of these places, or if I've missed your favorite, let us know in the comments. At the end of the day, we're all just a product of those Sunday roasts and roadside stops. See you in the next one. Britain has changed a lot since those days of Wimpy and Little Chef. Many of these brands have vanished, leaving just a gap on the A road and a memory in our minds. But as long as we remember that taste of a brown derby or the excitement of seeing a red roof in the distance, a part of our childhood stays alive. Cheers for joining me on this trip down memory lane. If you've got a special memory of these places, or if I've missed your favorite, let us know in the comments. At the end of the day, we're all just a product of those Sunday roasts and roadside stops. See you in the next one.